Don't get too excited. I'm going to try to keep you awake, but it might not work. I'm Pete, and I'm a definite alcoholic. And by the grace of God, I got friends like Elizabeth that was willing to join me tonight and speak for 10 minutes and get things warmed up. And some friends came to kind of support me, because we don't ever have to do this alone, man. That was one thing that it took me a while to get a hold of that one, because I was always alone, me and my dog, and we got along just fine and didn't need anybody else. And you can see where I wound up. I won't bore you too much. I got to kind of share my experience, strength, and hope with you guys. And the only thing that I share, we all could sit around for hours and tell drunkalogs and laugh at each other, because we're not that embarrassed anymore. I mean, we lived through all that crap. But I want to share what it was like for me at the end, because I don't ever want to forget that. That's why I'm here. I don't ever want to forget it. And that's why when people ask me to speak, although I'd much rather be listening, I speak. I feel it's part of my responsibility as a recovering alcoholic to give back to you. And if one person in this room hears something that I have to say tonight that helps them stay awake and clean and sober until tomorrow morning, I did the best I can do, man. That's all I can do. And I'm willing to try and do that. So the end for me was kind of cool, like a flushing toilet. There was me and my dog, and we had this big old house, and I was a big-time construction foreman and all that happy stuff, and alcohol owned me. It flat owned me, and I couldn't own up to that. I just couldn't believe that. I will give you an example of 24 hours, and I wish I could tell you that it happened once, but it didn't. It happened day after day after day for a long time, and I wound up totally ashamed, and it got me here. By the grace of God, it got me here. Okay, so I was this big-time construction foreman, and the dog was my right hand. We'd get up at 4:30 every morning, and I'd turn on the coffee maker and feed the dog and open the door so she could go out and do whatever she had to do, and then I had to go in and brush my teeth and wash my face and stuff like that. Well, I was so saturated that I could not put the toothpaste on my toothbrush if I didn't drink in advance. And I got kind of tickled when I got sober, because I'd have people look at me and they'd go, "Oh, you drank in the morning? Well, hell yeah, why are you going to wait so long?" So I used to have this big Tupperware tumbler. Thanks for leaving me this, brother. This is an advertisement for his boss here. I had a Tupperware tumbler this size, and this is what I used. And I put that much vodka and that much Sprite and some ice cubes. Not many ice cubes. And you're probably wondering why did that guy goof that shit up with Sprite? Well, I used to be a professional athlete, and I used to take herbs and vitamins every single morning. And in my opinion, I thought, well, if you don't put caffeine in with that alcohol, maybe you won't shake, which was a lie. And you're not drinking just straight liquor, like alkies do. Some of us are sick in the head a little bit. So I would have to take this vodka into the bathroom and do my thing. And I'd come out and I'd pack my lunch, because I'm this responsible person. Make sure the dog's cool. And what I did was I poured coffee in my coffee thermos, and then I put that much vodka in my coffee cup with that much Sprite and 2 ice cubes. And that was to get to work. And so me and the dog would jump in the company truck that wasn't my company, with the name plastered all over it, and we'd drive to work. Well, I had it down to a science. About a mile and a half from the office, I had to get off the highway So by the time I made the right-hand turn, I'd roll down the window and throw the ice cubes out of my coffee cup and then fill it up with coffee so when I got to work, nobody would know that I was drinking in the morning. You could smell me from here to Delano Street probably, but I couldn't smell it. It was cool, you know, and that's the way we did things. So by the grace of God, I could make it from, my guys showed up at 7 o'clock and we worked from 7 to 3:30. And I could make it from 7 to 3:30 without a drink. But by 3:30, man, I couldn't, if you were the last guy on my job, I better see your tail lights at 3:30 because I've got to open my company toolbox and get out my vodka and put it in my coffee cup and put a little bit of Sprite and some ice cubes out of the water jug so that I can drive home. Because now I'm starting to shake. And I'll tell you a quick one about the shaky thing. You guys love this shit. I'm a definite alcoholic, man. I mean, I'm working on this job, and we're going into overtime. I'm working on another guy's job, helping him out. And my roommate is working on another job down the road. And I told the guy that I was working for, I said, shit, man. I said, you got to call Timmy, man. He's got to take me to the hospital. I think I'm having the big one. And he says, you sure? And I said, yeah, man, yeah, call him, get him over here. So, make a long story short, he comes over, we hustle down to the hospital, and I tell the intake nurse, I said, oh, shit, man, I'm thinking I'm having the big one, man. My cardiologist lives right, his office is right across the road. Get him over here, man. This is bad. This is really bad. So they put me in the ER room, you know, on the bed, and man, I'm feeling bad. And here comes this male nurse after a little while, you know. Some of them, they come in and, you know, they draw blood and all this happy horse shit. And this dude comes walking in, big old dude, and he's got this paper bag in his hand. And he sits down next on the edge of my bed, and he says, here, man, he says, take this bag and take a deep breath and just blow real slow in the bag. And I'm thinking, God damn, man, I'm having a heart attack and you're giving me a paper sack to blow in? And about the second breath, my man says, you know, he says, I had a drinking problem myself. And I'm blowing in the bag and I go, no shit. Well, you know, some of us are a little slow. So when the doctor comes in, he tells me, and this was really embarrassing because I was really involved in the California rodeo over there in Salinas, and I knew him because he was the rodeo doctor, and he comes in and he sits on the side of the bed and he says, hey man, he says, I think you ought to eat more and drink less. And I said, okay, can I go now? So then I got to, because I left the job, I got to take a copy of the discharge paper back to the superintendent in the morning. I'm an alcoholic. By the time I get all the way to my house, I've already told the dog how we're going to get away with this shit. So I take a mark out what the guy said about eating more and drinking less, and I just scribbled like some crap on there, you know, and turned it in the next day. But yeah, that's how it was. But okay, so back to the normal day. We get off at 3:30. Depending on how far I was from the house, depended on how much I drank to get there. And it didn't matter in the Tri-County area. It didn't matter where I was working. I could tell you where every single liquor store was between that location and my house. And this little old town I lived in, it is kind of in the country. They had one store that sold beer and hard liquor, and they closed at 8 o'clock at night. And there was times when I got that panic attack like happens sometimes with alcoholics, you know, that you're not going to have enough to make it till the morning. And luckily, by the grace of God, something told me, said, don't drive that company truck down there, you're all drunk again. This would be in the evening. So me and the dog would stagger all the way down there. It was a mile to the store. Get liquor and stagger all the way back to the house just so that I could go to sleep without the panics happening. Normally what would happen is me and the dog would get home, and I'd get dinner going. Like I said, the dog couldn't cook, so I had to do the cooking and the cleaning and everything. So I'd get dinner going, and I'd have to go take a shower. Well, you don't take a shower if you don't have that. You got to have that with you. I mean, doesn't everybody drink in the shower? If you don't, do it. Try it. Shit, it's great. It's the only way you're going to make it. You might get dehydrated in the shower if you don't. So you drink, right? I did. I drank. Well, by the time I get done in the bathroom and come out and turn on the television and make another big vodka, and me and the dog are sitting there watching the TV, and I don't know what we used to watch, man. You know, it was on. So then dinner would be ready, and by this time, being the definite alcoholic that I am, you don't really have an appetite anymore. You know, it's kind of wore off. Yeah, you're swimming. So, I'll put this in the fridge, and I'll take it for lunch tomorrow, and then I'd go back and I'd sit on the couch with the dog, and pretty quick I'd get the old, ooh, man, time to go to bed. So I'd be looking at this thing, and, you know, I still don't know what's on the television, and I shut the thing off, and my room was as close as me and this guy right here. I had to make it that far, make it right through the door. I own this great big house, and my room had to be right there because that was the closest one to the couch. You can't imagine how much turf I could cover between here and there and try to get through the doorway. I bounced off that doorway so many times that my dog used to sit on the floor and look at me and go, shit, not again. I mean, it was, you know, I can laugh about it now too, boy, but I'll tell you what, it happened every day. Every stinking day for a long time, man. That was some bad stuff. So I turned 54 years old, and I had got drunk for the first time. I was cowboying on a ranch. I got drunk at 14. So for you guys that are a little bit challenged, that's 40 years. Don't worry about it. No big deal. And I turned fun, pure fun, into pure hell. Nobody else did it. I did it, but I was blaming you for doing it. You know, that's just the way that shit works. So this lady calls me on my birthday, and she tells me, she said, she worked for me, and she says, you know, I called to wish you a happy birthday, and she said, I want you to know I love you, and she says, man, you got to do something about your drinking. Well, you know, it's like 10:30 on a Sunday morning. It's my birthday, and I'm drunk as a skunk already. Now you start telling a drunk skunk that he needs to quit drinking and that you love him, and all of a sudden he's going to start crying on you. So I'm crying. The dog's looking at me like, who should I bite? Who should I bite, man? What's up? And so I hung up the phone, you know, and I sat there and cried for a little while longer. And I kept asking myself, I said, you know, how does a guy that was a professional athlete wind up like this? How come you can't just quit? I couldn't quit. It owned me. Alcohol owned me. I mean, I'm like Elizabeth. This is an AA meeting, so we'll talk about how I used to drink, because that's a good enough story, I guarantee you. But I used to throw so much other shit in on top. Boy, I'm telling you what, we used to have a heyday. But it finally got to me, I guess, you know, and now I know what was going on. And so I'm on the job about 4 days later, and it's lunchtime, and I've just had it. I can't drink anymore because I'm saturated. I can't get loaded. You know how you drink to get away, kind of, you know, is what I used to do. I used to just try to escape from whatever it was. You know, this was my little hiding place. Just get all tore up. Well, I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it, man. That was a shitty feeling. So I told the dog, I said, you know, we got to do something about this. So I used to date this lady. You'll love this. I dated a lady that was in AA. Not a long time. But she gave me one of them blue books. And she told me, she said, you might want to read this one time. So, being a definite alcoholic I am, I got good and drunk one night and opened up the big book right about in the middle someplace and read about 10 pages. I tell you what, I turned that bad boy into a coaster. There was some weird stuff in there. There was some sick people in that book. Whoop! Put her on the coffee table, set my vodka on it. Well, it's lunchtime, and I'm sitting on the tailgate with my dog, and I thought, you know, I'm going to call that lady and tell her I got to go someplace, man. I need help. So I did. I called her and I said, hey, this is a kind of a humorous phone call too. I said, hey, I said, you know, I got a drinking problem. I need to go someplace. And she goes, no shit. So she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I need to go someplace because you know how I am. I said, if they don't lock me up, it ain't going to work. So she said, okay, I'll call you back in a few minutes. So I hang up the phone. I go back, sit down on the tailgate, look at the dog, and I go, why did I do that? So she calls back. She says, yeah, I got a place you can go tomorrow morning. And I said, okay. So I called the office, didn't want to. Called the office, I got a hold of my superintendent, and I said, hey, man, I said, I got to go into a little rehab action here. You know, I says, I'm drinking too much. Okay. I said, I'll be gone about a week. So the next morning, me and the dog, I pack up enough gear for a week and make sure that I got somebody who's going to cover the dog and all that stuff. This lady that's taking me is going to take the dog. So the first place we go to, so on the way to her house, I pull a pint out from underneath the seat and I put it in my coffee cup and I pick her up and she gets in the truck and she goes, are you drinking? I said, yeah. She goes, well, we're going to recovery. And I said, well, we're not. Yeah, okay, you know, it's cool. So we go to the first place and go in there and I'm talking to the intake lady and there's some kind of hiccup with my insurance or something. And by this time, you know, I'm a definite alcoholic. And it's been quite a while since I had another drink out of that bottle. And I think the party's over. I said, oh, well, that's okay. I said, I'll just go back home. She goes, well, let me make a phone call. There's a place right up the road. Let me see what they got going on. So she makes a phone call, and I'm pacing the floor, you know, like Alky's doing. She says, oh, they've got a bed for you. You can go up there right now. And I said, oh, how sweet. Thank you. So I grabbed my duffel bag, and we're walking out to the truck. And this lady that took me up there, you guys, I mean, is a short lady, short, like Miss Sarah, short. And we're walking across the parking lot, and this lady passes me like I got the parking brake on. And I'm, where in the hell is she going? Well, she opens the truck door, grabs a vodka bottle, throws it in the garbage can. About that time, I get to the truck, and I go, what are you doing? And she goes, first of all, I'm driving, and you're not drinking anymore because you're going to rehab. And I said, yeah, but we're not there yet. Needless to say, the look she gave me, I just got in the passenger seat and started thinking about how I was going to get out of this. So, you know, like they just read the traditions, you know, and you got all that stuff about anonymity. You know, everybody, don't tell anybody I drink too much. You know, that's the way I was. Oh, nobody will know. So we go up to this place, and 1/4 mile from this rehab place, I just finished building the liquor store parking lot. I know right where it's at. It's 1/4 mile away. So I'm thinking, well, this ain't too bad. So I'm sitting there doing the intake crap, you know, and stuff, and a door opens right here, and this lady comes walking out, and I looked up and I said, oh, shit, Caroline, what are you doing here? It was another foreman's wife that I worked, the company I work for, it's his wife. And she goes, oh, I run this place, Pete. Sure glad you're here. And I thought, oh, this ain't going to work out like I had planned at all. So I joined the Happy Circus, and by the grace of God, you know, I was so determined to feel better that I didn't really give a shit what they thought they were going to get me to do. I was going to try my best to do it. And I didn't start out, you know, with that concept of a power greater than myself because, you know, I was such an important person. But I started listening, you know, and they were talking about, you know, you need to believe in a power greater than yourself, you know, and all this doodad and just don't drink and, you know, read the book and, yeah, okay, yay, team. Well, it's the middle of the night, And I'm standing, got to describe this to you. As you can tell, I kind of describe everything. There's this driveway, big long-ass driveway, goes down like this to the street. And 1/4 mile from the street is that liquor store where I built the parking lot. It's the middle of the night. It's before 2 o'clock. Nobody in the whole rehab joint is awake except me. I'm standing there looking down this driveway. And I turned around and went back to my bed. And it took me a long time to realize what happened. A power greater than myself believed in me before I believed in it is the only reason I didn't go down that driveway. I know that today. So I do the whole happy thing. Whoa, yeah, my I'll be back in a week deal was 30 days and 31 nights. I didn't quite take enough clothes. But I stuck it out. I worked out all the details and stuff like that. And when I got ready to go, well, I was almost ready to go. I was there 25 days. And being a definite alcoholic like I am, I go to my counselor. His name's Mike. I walk in his office. He's sitting there at his desk. And got this piece of paper. And I say, Mike, I said, man, I'm feeling good. You know, you get 25 days, you know, my system's pretty cleaned out, you know, and I'm not shaking, and I'm kind of happy, almost. I said, hey, Mike, I think I'm ready to go home, man. I said, if you sign me out, if something happens in the future, I got like 6 more days or 5 days and 1 night, you know, just so I could get, you know, out of the insurance company. And now, I'm a definite alcoholic. I know my man's going to go for this shit, right? And he's sitting there at his desk. He looks up at him. He goes, nope, not yet. Whew. Man, I'm telling you, for an alkie like me, when your plan don't work, might just humble you a little bit. So I get out, and they give me this big stack of stuff. It's all meeting schedules for the Tri-County where I live. Go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps, da-da-da-da, like we've all heard a million times. So I said, okay, I'd made arrangements for a buddy of mine, brought my truck up and brought my dog. And so I get out, and we're driving down the road, and I'm talking to the dog. You know, the nice part about them dogs, they never talk back. It's all good. So me and the dog are going down the road, and I'm telling the dog, you know, we got to go through town before we go home, because there's like a decent-sized town here, and then I live down here in this little town. I said, before we go home, man, we're going to go to an AA meeting outside. I never went to a meeting outside of this compound that I lived in. You know, you had to have your stuff really squared away to go get a van ride down to an outside meeting. The guys I lived with, we didn't qualify. We stayed in the compound. But so I tell the dog, man, I'm going to go to this meeting. So I go to this meeting. It's a noon meeting, and I've never been to an outside meeting, and I'm not sure what the hell's going on, you know, and stuff. And so I go in, and they got this big old room, bigger than this. And this real cute lady is up there at the desk, and she comes walking back. And I learned in recovery, you don't sit in the back because then they know you're a newcomer. And you can't sit up front because that's where all the grouchy old-timers are at. So I got this shit down. I'm going to sit in the middle. So I'm sitting in the middle. And she comes up and she goes, would you like to read? And I'm looking at her like, lady, I've been locked up for 30 days. Yes, I'll read. You bet I'll read. Yes, I'll take that. Well, then all of a sudden, it's getting a little closer to noon. And I'm not kidding you guys. There's doors open there and there's doors open behind me. And these people are coming in. I mean, thousands of people are coming in. This is my mentality. Thousands. And they're smiling and joking and laughing and hugging on each other. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, man, I don't know about this. This is a little weird. And, you know, I'm cool because I'm thinking, well, maybe I won't see anybody I know. Or if I do, I'll just duck out. Well, I wasn't 10 minutes before the meeting, Here comes a guy I used to work with every day in the other door, and I'm thinking, oh, God, I hope he didn't see me. You know, it doesn't dawn on me. There's a reason he's there, you fool. Just like you, same reason, right? So, Pedro don't do big crowds. You know, just me and crowds don't get along, and it's all good. So I get up, and I go up to the secretary's desk, and I put the paper down, and she goes, oh, I thought you were going to read. I said, oh, I read it. And she says, no, in the meeting. Well, now, you know, I was locked up for 30 days. Now you can't look chicken shit, right? And I said, oh, man, okay. So I go back and I sit in the middle, and I mean, there's a million people in this room. Lots of millions. And the lady says, and now we'll have Pete read the preamble. And I thought, shit, I'm first. And I'm staring at this thing, and you know how it is, man. You know everybody's just staring at you. You're so important. You're reading the preamble, man. Everybody's got to be staring at you. And I'm mispronouncing words and blah, 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 blah. I finally get all through that, and I thought, boy, I'm never doing this again. Make a long story short, it's a speaker meeting. I don't know who spoke that day, and now I know almost every alky over there where I used to live. I don't know who spoke. I don't have any idea what they said. All I know was I saw a lot of happy people. A lot of happy people. So after the Lord's Prayer, I'm the first one out the door. See ya. Go by these two ladies that were greeting at the front door, and they go, bye, Pete, we'll see you again. Keep coming back. And I got it. I get in the truck. I tell the dog, I said, whoa, something's going on here. I said, you can't believe that. That room is full of happy people. I couldn't even spell happy. I couldn't stand myself. How could I spell happy? So me and the dog are headed home. And my biggest fear, this won't make any sense to you, but it does to me, because I was a bachelor and there was only me and the dog. My biggest fear when I was in recovery was I was going to get out of that place and I was going to have to go grocery shopping. How do you go grocery shopping without going through the liquor locker? Now that sounds asinine. Why would a guy be afraid of that? I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it. So we go to the store. The next thing I know is I got the groceries in the back. I start the truck. I look over at the dog and I said, puta, how did that happen? So when we got home, I put the groceries away and I picked up that big book that they gave me to read, and I found that place that she was talking about, the promises. And I read that and I thought, you know, I wonder if this is for real. You know, I made it. I went grocery shopping. I went right through the liquor locker. I didn't buy any liquor. I didn't even care. Well, make a long story short, I just kept going to meetings. I wanted to find out how you people were happy. I was determined I was going to be happy. Me and that dog were going to be happy, happy, happy. And I was going to figure out the trick. And I got a sponsor. I was so cool that I got a Mexican guy to sponsor me so that if I pissed my God off in English, he could translate for me in Spanish. That's how determined I was going to make this. Going to make it happen. And I worked the steps. And the first three are kind of self-explanatory, man. I mean, if you can't get step 3, you're going to struggle for a long time. But then I worked 4, 5, 6, 7, and I learned who Pete was. And I learned part of the reason that I drank so much was that I had so much fear. And I feared me. I had no idea. Had no idea until I worked the steps. And my sponsor pointed it out to me. What a miracle. I got to find out who I was. And then, like everybody else that's worked the steps, you know, I made my amends list, and I didn't want to make my amends just like everybody else. And the one I really didn't want to make was to my mother. She was still alive. And I like a good alcoholic, I kept procrastinating why I shouldn't get started. finally my sponsor says, why don't you just man up and do it? And that pissed me off. So I said, okay, I'll show him, I'll do it. I'll start with the hardest one, I'll tell my mother. So I went to make my amends to my mother, and I gave up on the word, I'm sorry. Because I had said that so many times I wore it out. So I made my amends to my mother, and when I got done, I figured, even as old as I was going to get one of these motherly sermons telling me exactly what I had done in the past, which I had a real good recollection of. And she looked at me and she said, thank God I got my son back. That was it, man. And I started crying. Neatest experience I've had in a long time. So then I get thrown into service work. And I'm a big advocate of service work. Just going to meetings, not really getting involved, might keep you going. My higher power knew what I needed. And I got thrown into service work big time, and I've been in service ever since then. And I just keep doing it. And I don't do it just in these rooms. Like Kirk asked me to come and speak to you guys tonight, and I don't like doing it. But it's what I need to do that. I need to give back. It's a very small thing for me to give back. I work with old horses and handicapped kids up in Chino Valley. I love it. I don't have to do anything, man. I'm retired. I got the time. The kids love it. The horses, I make them love it. They think I'm the greatest thing since peanut butter. I scratch on them so much. I work for the Chino Valley Police Department. I give back. Service work. And when you first get started and stuff, you don't realize you're being of service to the person sitting next to you by sitting in that seat. That's the way this works. Thank God we don't ever have to do this alone. Because, man, that was my idea when I started. Thank God I paid attention. I go to meetings. I get in service. I read the book. I still read the book. I still do everything I did in the beginning. And I love it. Now I'm a happy person. And what I really want to do is I want to thank all you guys for keeping me sober for one more hour. Thanks, man.